Hello and welcome to our tutorial video that shows you how to enter interview data into EleQta. Interview data entries are a little bit more complex than the other data entries. It always starts from your home page, as you can see, where you will have to find the appropriate election if more than one is listed, and click on the Enter and View Data button right next to the appropriate election. Once you've done this, you will find yourself in a page where you can see an orange section for the archival data entries, and then you see a list of your missions. Interviews are being conducted during your missions, so you will have to find the appropriate mission during which you have conducted a specific interview before you enter data for it. So let's say I have conducted an interview during my second mission here. Entering interview data involves an extra step. Before you can enter data that has been sourced from an interview, you must create the interview within EleQta. You must inform EleQta that you have performed an interview. To do that, you have to click on the Create a New Interview button, the green button here, and you will access a page where you will be able to create this new interview. It is very simple to do. You just have to enter the date and time of the interview. You have to enter the location where the interview occurred, including details if you have difficulties pinning the location on the map, or if you don't know, or if there is information that you want to provide us about the location that cannot be shown on the map. The source. The source field must be filled in with the name, with something that identifies the person that you are interviewing. So, as you can see here, you have a list of persons also which are available to you. It is hardly going to be the case that you find someone you will interview somebody that has a dossier. We do not encourage you to interview actors that are playing an active role in the political scene. We actually are most interested in gathering the opinions and information from the citizens rather than the players in the political arena. So if you already have interviewed this person, you will find him among My Dossier. At the end of the dossier list, you can see all the dossiers that are only visible to you. Among these, you'll find the dossiers for the people you have already interviewed. So if it's somebody that you're interviewing for the second or third time, you can select his name over here. If it's somebody that you're interviewing for the first time, you have to create a new dossier for this interviewee. To do this, you will just have to enter his name in here. Let's say his name is Peter. I will create a new dossier for him by writing down his name and clicking on enter. So as you can see now, Peter has been registered here as the source of my interview. Since I have created a new dossier for this guy, I will have to go to my dossier section and enter all the details about this person. The next field when you create an interview is a circumstances field. Over here you can add anything that might help to understand the circumstances in which the interview was done, and namely anything that might hinder the freedom of expression of the person that you were interviewing. Next, there is a field that's called the raw interview content file. Over here, you can upload one or more files that contain the recording or the notes of the interview that you have done. When you interview someone, you must ask him if he accepts to be recorded. If he does, you will record the audio of the interview and then upload it to EleQta using this button. If he does not accept, you will have to make notes. And if you have notes at the end of the interview, you will also have to upload the notes in the form of a picture if it's handwritten, in the form of a text file if you are taking notes on your computer. So we want the raw content of the interview in EleQta. So you will have to upload the file with the recording of the interview or your notes in here. In this field, you can also upload multiple files. So in case your recording was interrupted, you can add several files in here. Voila. And in case you upload is impossible, you also have a file name field which you can use if really you have a problem in the upload. You will indicate the name of your file in here, and then put the file inside your big folder where you are storing all the data that you were unable to upload, all the files that you were unable to upload, and that you will give at the end of the campaign. You will give this folder to the supervisor. So once you are done, you click on create, and you will see the system will send you to a page where you can see a list of all the interviews that you have conducted during this specific mission. So right now I have only entered one interview. So once I have done creating the interview, I can start entering the interview data. Between these two operations, there can be a very variable interval of time. I can create the interview straight away, also to get rid of the files pretty rapidly, to upload them to EleQta so I don't have to keep them on my device. And then I can go back to EleQta and perform the analysis of the interview, which will allow me to create interview data entries. What happens in this second phase? The second phase means that you are either listening or reading the notes of the interview, and for every bit of information that is given to you by the interviewee, you stop the recording or you stop reading and you create an interview data entry. So you will have to divide what has been said by the interviewee during the whole interview into a number of different data entries, one for each bit of information that is being given to you by the interviewee. I did not mention, but it is pretty obvious that interviews also have to be held according to a topics grid that you can view by clicking on the yellow button next to the interview in the interview column over here. Take into account that the topic grids are different for every mission, so you want to look at and use the proper interview topics grid for each mission. So before you are, the day before or a few days before you are sent on a mission, you must read these topics grids, possibly store them on your device, and make sure that you are familiar with them, and possibly even have them available in one form or the other while you are on your mission, in paper, on your device, etc. So these topic grids are all similar. So once again, here you have instructions and comments that you can show and hide to obtain a smaller file, which may be useful if you want to print this, because some of the topic grids are pretty long. Again, the topics are not a homework list, so you don't have to actually enter information about each one of these topics for every interview. These topics are not questions that have to be asked. As we explain you thoroughly during our briefings, we are conducting semi-directive interviews where you are having a conversation with your interviewee about the political life in the country. Conversation starts with you asking your interviewee to actually describe his experience of this election, and then depending on how much the interviewee is available to talk spontaneously, you will or will not be compelled to restart the conversation, reboot the conversation by actually either asking a question or giving some information and asking your interviewee to comment about it, etc. This is very variable depending on the person that's in front of you. Some people might just talk for 20 minutes without you saying anything. Others will need to be encouraged to do so more often. We encourage you to choose carefully your interviewees. As I said already, we don't want you to interview actors that are playing a role in the political arena. You might do it, but we do not particularly encourage you to do it. And we recommend that if you do it, I mean, it has to be an exception. You cannot just interview political actors. It's the citizens' opinion that are most interesting to us. So the choice of the interviewee should be done in a way that takes into account the fact that you want the interviewee to talk spontaneously to you and to feel free to really voice his opinion. So you will have to select your interviewee carefully, uh, possibly selecting someone who knows who you are, depending on the context. There might be situations where people are very scared when it comes to talking about politics. So, interviewing somebody that you know might be an advantage in this case. You also have to pay attention about to the circumstances of the interview. You will, especially in situations where the level of fear is high, you will try to avoid to interview people in public places. You will not interview people around or inside the polling stations, etc., etc. So a lot of this depends on your common sense and also on arrangements that are being done for each specific country. So to go back to our interview data entry functions of EleQta, as you see here in the mission interviews column, you have three buttons. One is for the topics grid we just saw. The other one is to create a new interview. We have already seen how you can add a new interview. And the third one here is the gray one is allows you to view the interviews that have already been created for this mission number 2. So if I click on this button, I will find my interview with Peter, which I created earlier. So once the interview is created, I can also edit it by clicking on this button. And this is where I can download the recording or the video of the interview or my notes in case I have lost them or in case I have deleted them from my device. In some cases, it is not very safe to store a lot of data on your devices. So EleQta also allows you to actually re-download the stuff that you have uploaded, the files that you have uploaded. So if you click on the file name here, like I just did, you will be prompted to confirm where you want to actually save the file, and by clicking on save, you will start a download. And here it is. So this edit interview function allows you to do to re-download the file, but also to enter any other further information that you might have omitted while initially creating the interview. It might also be useful for you while you are on the field and each time you interview someone to briefly, rapidly create the interview so that you remember all the interviews that you have done, and then you go back to the interviews and you edit them, you upload the files, you enter the names of the persons who were interviewed, etc., etc. So you click on save here once you have done your modifications, and here I am back to my interviews list. So here I have two buttons that allow me to go back to the elections page or create a new interview. But let's say I want to analyze the interview that I did with Peter. So I have downloaded the audio file of the interview and I am listening to it. Every time that Peter says something that is relevant to our inquiries, and I stop the recording and I create a data entry for this interview. So for example, let's say one of the first things that Peter says is that he is happy to be interviewed, that his voice is listened to. So as usual, this is an interview data entry page. As you can see, it resembles very much to the other data entry pages. The first choice again is inside which topic do you want to classify the information that Peter, in this case, is giving to you. So here you have the list of all the topics that are in your topics grid, but also at the end, like for the other data entry modes, there is a generic topic where you can put any information that you find relevant, but that you are unable to classify within one of these topics. So let's say that the first thing he says, I am happy to be interviewed. So in the text field, you have to enter the literal words used by the person you are interviewing. So what he said, I'm happy to be interviewed. I didn't mention that interviews can be conducted in different languages. They don't have to be in English or in any European language. Interviews must be conducted in the language that will ensure the highest degree of confidence in your interviewee. So do not hesitate to use local different languages, but when you enter the text in here, you must translate it into English or into the language of the inquiry. So your raw contents file will be a recording maybe of an interview in Swahili or in a different language, and when you do your data entry, you will translate what is being said by the interviewee in the most literal way. Uh, so and that's what you put in the text field. Uh, in the following field, you must enter a reference to the associated file. So you are listening to a recording of the interview, which is the associated file. You have associated your raw contents file to the interview when you created it. So now you want to tell to the researcher that is looking at this interview after you have entered it, at what point of the recording your interviewee said that, for example, he is happy to be interviewed. Let's say it's just at the beginning, 20 seconds. Voila. So in case it's an audio or video file, you put the time. If it's notes, you want to indicate the page, etc. This is compulsory. This field is very important because it will allow the researchers who will listen to the interview, who will look at the interview data after you, to actually understand at what point it was said, and also possibly to know the literal words used by your interviewee, which might be of some importance in some cases. The following field is called dossiers involved. Again, here your interviewee might be mentioning somebody, the president, party, and over here is where you can actually specify which actors are involved in the information that your interviewee is giving to you. So I saw, let's say that Peter is saying, I saw an article on Jeune Afrique on their website about Mr. Kabila. So these two dossiers, these two actors, Jeune Afrique, the media, and Mr. Kabila, the president, are involved in the information that Paul is giving you. So let's say that your interviewee is mentioning to you that he has seen a demonstration against Mr. Kabila organized organized by just one of the opposition parties, which could be the MLC, for example. So this is what the interviewee is mentioning to you. This is about forms of political mobilizations before the vote. Let's say we're before the vote. So we will select this topic, and we will also say that Mr. Kabila is implied in this, and also the MLC is implied in this, is involved because they are the ones who have organized the demonstration. Let's say this is being said after 50 seconds the interview is going on. So please take into account that in this data entry page, the only map you see is the map where you can enter additional date, time, and location which are contained in the information. Okay, the date, time, and location of the information, which you would usually enter in the first map, are not there here because those correspond to the date, time, and location of the interview itself. So this second and only map field that you see here needs to be filled in only if the information that you are reporting contains a reference to an event, to a separate event. So in this case, your interviewee, Mr. Peter, is saying that he saw a demonstration against Mr. Kabila, which was organized by the MLC. So he is referring to another event, the demonstration that he saw. So he might also tell you when he saw it. I saw it 3 days ago. And he might also mention where it took place. So if he does, you will have to pinpoint the position on the map and to indicate the date and time when the demonstration has occurred. This map field will probably remain empty in many cases, such as the one I highlighted before, where the guy was saying, I'm happy to be interviewed. There is no further additional date, time, and location which are contained in this information. On the contrary, if he mentions a demonstration against Mr. Kabila, or if he mentions, I saw police forces in front of my house 3 days ago, then yes, you have to fill in the map field by specifying where and when he saw the police. As for other map fields, there is a details field down here, which does not replace searching the location on the map. So pinpoint the location you want to indicate on the map as precisely as possible, and then use the details field if some information is missing or if you're having some kind of trouble. The last field is your analysis field, where you can see the plot and subplot hypothesis that we have formulated together. And you can also enter your analysis of the data and also tell us how you think it relates to these hypotheses. Once you are done filling in all the fields that need to be filled in, you click on Create. And once this is done, you will find yourself in a page where there is a list of all the data entries that you have done for this specific interview, for the interview with Peter. So the more I listen to the interview, the more I will keep creating interview data entries. So the next sentence will be about, let's say, again, something about being happy. I am okay with you recording me. So there is a topic here that says, how does the interviewee react to the fact that the interview is being recorded? I am okay with that. And then when does he say it? 56 seconds. No one's involved in here, I would say. There is no date and time. And well, the analysis, let's drop it for now. So you click on Create. And what happens now is that you will find yourself, well, in this page where there is a new data entry that has been created for this interview. Again, here you have an edit button, which allows you to edit the data entry that has already been created, and a clone button, which allows you to clone a data entry that has already been created. Let's say this guy saw 2 demonstrations on the same day, and he is formulating a sentence in the following form. I saw 2 demonstrations yesterday. One was against Kabila, organized by the MLC, and the other one was for Kabila, in support of Kabila. So how am I entering this data into EleQta? I have to split this sentence into 2 different data entries because the interviewee is giving me 2 different bits of information about 2 different demonstrations. Since these 2 bits of information are very similar, instead of creating a new data entry from scratch, I can clone the existing one here. And by clicking on this button, I will be sent to a data entry page which is already filled in. So I have seen a demonstration against Mr. Kabila, was the old one, and the new one is in support of Mr. Kabila. Well, he doesn't say who organized it, it doesn't matter. So the Kabila is still concerned. This will probably be said at a different time. And then this other demonstration for Kabila is probably taking place at a different place over here on the same day on the 15th. So after I'm done doing these changes, I click on create and I will see a new data entry for my interview. Here it is, which is this new one here. We do not want you ever to enter two identical data entries in EleQta. It is useless. So use this clone function with care. You always take into account that you have to make some changes. What I just said about the person, about you having to split the data among different data entries is very important. We don't want you to ever enter lists in EleQta. You have to split the data and create separate data entries for each bit of information that you have gathered, whether it's being given to you by someone or you found it yourself. The person might be mentioning, for example, your interviewee might be mentioning that he saw the police on the voting day in front of his house and in front of the polling station. These are two different bits of information which will have to produce two data entries into EleQta. To do this is why we added the clone function to make your life easier. Once you have done analyzing the entire interview, you can go back to the interviews list for this mission and create a new interview because you might have interviewed another person during that mission, and you will be able to enter interview data for that interview too. Let's say I have interviewed also Mr. John. Voilà, I create a new dossier for him. I will very roughly indicate my location now, not to waste too much time. I will upload a file that corresponds to this interview, a raw file, and then I click on create. And so right now in my interviews list for this mission, I will find two different interviews. So when you enter interview data, be careful that you select the proper interview. See, there's two of them here. So once you have created an interview, you can enter data for that interview, or you can also go back and view the interview data on the green page for each one of the interviews. So this is Peter's data, and this is the data was given to me by John. There should be nothing in here. In fact, there's nothing. So you remember that once I was in the interview creation page, I have created new dossiers for Peter and John, because these are people that I have interviewed for the first time. So what I have to do now is go back to the dossier section of EleQta and find those dossiers and enter the details about these persons. When I perform an interview, at the end of the interview, there is a number of questions that I need to ask to the person about personal information about him, age, group, where he lives, education, etc. All of this information will have to be entered in the dossier for this person. This is all written down in your interview instructions and also in the manual. You will go to your dossiers list by clicking on this button, and then as for the other data entry modes, you will click on this column so you can order the dossiers starting with the most recent ones. So you can see here I have created these two dossiers for John and Peter, and I also have created other dossiers earlier. All the dossiers that I have created in the data entry pages are listed under the type My Dossiers and the subtype To Be Completed. So I know that John is one of my interviewees. I must, as soon as I have finished creating the interview for John, click on the Edit button here, so I can edit his dossier and select as a subtype interviewee. The type remains My Dossiers because interviewees are also only visible to me alone, to the researcher who created them alone. As you can see here, when I switch to interviewee, you can see the fields here which are have to be filled in. So the full name should be filled in only if the person accepts to declare his name. In most interviews, we expect your interviewees to want to remain anonymous. So if this is the case, you can either enter their first name or you can enter a specific nickname that allows you to recognize them. The important thing is that you recognize the person with the name within EleQta, so that if you interview the same person twice or more, you can put the same dossier in the source field when you create the interview to tell us that it's the same person who has given you the different interviews. So gender, profession, place of residence, etc. You have the little question marks here, so don't hesitate to use them. Which is, you can see, they contain specific advice to fill in all of these fields. Once you are done, you click on save, and Mr. John will be classified differently. Now he's an interviewee. You can see it here. Peter, I'll have to do the same thing. I'll have to do the same thing for all the dossiers that say to be completed. It means that I have to go back to them and check out all of the information and fill in all the information that is missing, namely classifying them inside the appropriate type and subtype. This is very important because it will assure that the dossier structures is coherent among all the different users. So we have seen how interviews should be conducted. Interviews are a very complex task. A lot will depend on your own common sense. When you are on the field, context may be very different, so we will try and establish interview practices for each country and team and election that we are surveying, but a lot will also depend on your common sense. So do not hesitate to ask any question if you have any, and please refer to our help section here if you need instructions about how to conduct an interview. You can find them here, interview instructions page. And you can also see here all the things, personal information that you need to ask from the interviewee.